You're listening to the Visual Vocalist Podcast. I'm your host, Eli Prinsen. Join me and let's explore all things vocal, including technique, mindset, training, and performance in an effort to unleash your full vocal potential. All right, welcome to the Visual Vocalist Podcast. I'm your host, Eli Prinsen. Thanks for joining. All right, let's begin. Deep breath. Chest voice, true voice, full voice, middle voice, mixed voice, head voice, falsetto, head voice belting, chesty mix, true belting, modality 1 belting, curbing, overdrive, waveform, half voice, grit, heat, bite, rasp, distortion, gravel, gruff, subharmonics, fry, fire breath mode, cry mode, weep, wail, sob, sobbing in the mask, false fold distortion, arytenoid rattle, glottal compression, vocal fold adduction, chord shortening, zipping up, breath stop, glottal plosives, frictives, nasals, flooding the glottis, compression, glottal compression, laryngeal tilt, twang, formants, harmonics, frequencies, vowel tuning, vowel modification, split modification, piggybacking, consonant modification, specialized onsets. God help us all. Okay? So that gigantic jumbled up list of vocal terminology is what we're going to talk about today. Vocal terminology. Okay? Now, every bit of all of that means something, maybe something different to each person, to each student, to each teacher, okay? To each faction of bel canto or SLS or what have you, all right? So, looking at all of these, okay, I just went through just dozens of terms, just being silly, but just reading the first line, chest voice, true voice, full voice, middle voice, mixed voice, head voice, falsetto, head voice belting, chesty mix, true belting, modality 1. I'll go ahead and stop there. All of these things can mean something different depending on which person you're watching, probably on YouTube, spending more time searching for tips and magic wands and magic pills on YouTube than actually practicing, okay? So you're going to hear the term chest voice and head voice probably more than anything other than mixed voice. Because as I record this in September of 2023, mixed voice is all the rage, okay? About 10, 12, 15 years ago, belting, that's all people would talk about, right? They're just modes. They're just registrations, right? Now, all of these terms have meanings, okay? You know, we get into things like false fold distortion, arytenoid rattle, hyperglottal compression, you know, fire breath mode. All of those are terms that have to do with creating distortion or kind of jumbled up harmonics, getting the grit and the heat and the bite in the voice, right? Then when you hear terms like mixed voice, middle voice, half voice, right? That's usually, you know, blending of the registers or the point in the voice where we don't yodel if we're lucky and we actually have something to sing with in between the chest voice and the head voice, right? So the holy grail right now is finding and singing and actually using the mixed voice. Yeah. There's a whole nother debate. Falsetto and head voice. Are they the same? Are they different? What's the difference? Is this a completely different configuration? Are the false folds what actually create the falsetto? Some people used to think so, right? Not actually so. Some people believe head voice is a completely different register, that the vocal folds are zipping up. All right, they're zipping up to get this sound. It's not the same as falsetto. Falsetto must be breathy, right? So you're going to hear things go all over the place, back and forth. All right, how much does all of this really matter? Well, the only way that this actually matters is your understanding and the communication between you and your coach. All right. So like if you're somebody that is a student of singing and you're trying out various vocal systems and coaches, make sure you ask for an explanation along with the demonstration of your coach's registration terminology or their vocal terminology so that you don't become confused when you're bouncing all over the place and trying out different coaches and or systems. All right. Some of the slang out there can confuse people to death. Like, I remember when I first started, there was an old saying, even back then, and I started studying in late, I want to say 87, almost 88. And there was even back then, you would hear things like, sing like you speak like you sing. And you would hear things like that coming from different coaches, and they would mean two completely different things. And then you would also hear, you do not sing like you speak. Okay? And so that even before the internet, we were confused. Okay? Twang and nasality, what's actually going on? If you're not looking through an X-ray or what we have, in modern times, where we can actually get scoped at an ENT, you can actually see now what's actually going on when you create sound, right? You can actually see it if you go to the right ENT. If you go to a specialist, especially, and they have video to where you can actually watch what they're doing while they have that little camera going down your nose and down your throat and staring at your vocal folds, your vocal cords, and everything that's going on. And then if you're lucky enough to make all kinds of sounds while you're there, and you're able to create a lot of these quote-unquote terms and registrations, you suddenly see, wow, this all looks really, really similar. In fact, it moves so fast, the vibrations and the vocal folds coming together and going apart, it just, the speed of it is mind-boggling. And so if you actually mute, and I challenge anyone out there to do this, if you go on YouTube or whatever video site that you use in whatever country you live in, and you pull up a video that shows the vocal folds or the vocal cords, again, two different words mean the same thing. If you are watching the vocal cords working while someone is creating sound, okay, and just say they're just creating something in their speaking range, okay, their chest voice, chest register, here we go again. You'll see them come together. They're just about the size of a nickel, okay? Just like, they're really small. There's a space in between the glottis, okay? That's just the space in between the vocal cords. But they come together and vibrate and create sound. And they do so at incredible speeds, okay? So to our eyes, it just looks like, bzzz, really, 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 really fast movement, okay? Now, if you are lucky enough to find a video where someone that actually is a singer and that has a trained voice or can go through, do different actual registrations, like M1, like modality 1, chest voice, belting, and then someone that can do middle voice or mixed voice, whatever you want to call it, and then someone who can produce head voice and falsetto, all of these different tones and registrations. If you're lucky enough to come across one of those videos, watch it, okay? Pay attention to it, and what you'll realize is you don't see a whole lot of difference, except for maybe in belting, you might see a certain muscle kind of come into play, where the other ones just pretty much look the same at the vocal fold image, or right there, what you're viewing, okay? So then start the video over and mute it, and then look at it. And you won't be able to tell much difference, okay? Now, where I'm going with this is, we think about hundreds of years ago, bel canto starting, opera, right? Classical singing. And the available science of what's actually going on back then was much more limited than what we have today. Okay, so maestros of old would teach with visualization techniques, auditory examples, and the available science of the time. Okay? Now, actually seeing and watching the vocal cords in action will do about as much for you as changing a vocal term. Okay? Just seeing what's going on isn't automatically going to give you the understanding, and out of nowhere, you're just an incredible singer. All right? Realizing that time-tested and proven technique was unintentionally described inaccurately as far as modern access to vocal anatomy will not suddenly kill your voice, your teacher's voice, and his teacher's voice, all the way back to the original maestro, like killing a vampire or something, okay? It's not like, oh my God, the false folds are not creating this, or oh my God, the chords are not zipping up all the way to the tip for whistle voice, or this isn't happening, or that isn't happening. Uh-oh, you just lost your voice because that's not what's actually happening. But it was described a certain way, and you learned it, and you were able to do it, okay? I think you see where I'm going with this. So it's actually your understanding and implementing of the instruction and advice that you're getting that matters. So calling a compressed head voice belting or full voice will not magically turn that registration into modality 1 or a chest register. It's just that the goal is most likely to give the perception of a full chest register sound to that more easily producible registration, right? So it sounds like belting, so therefore it's mixed voice belting or head voice belting, right? Okay, so if you're a student of singing and you're confused as heck, or if you are thinking about taking lessons, or you're thinking about purchasing a vocal program or a couple of different programs, or trying out different coaches, chances are that they are going to come from different factions of different schools of bel canto or speech level singing, right? Or scientific approach application, or visualization, or cause and effect. There's a lot of different ways to teach the same thing. I remember, and I'll clean up the language for this podcast, but my teacher used to say, we all teach the same stuff, we just describe it and explain it differently. Okay, and to an extent, this is true. Okay, where sometimes you'll hear a bel canto teacher ranting and raving that speech level singing doesn't work, and you'll hear both sides of both sides of the fence using the same registrations and just calling them different terms, different terminology, and just slightly altering the approach, right, or the onset, something, right? So where you have people thinking that speech level singing is just singing in falsetto, it's really not. They do use a lot of head voice, but they also use what they call mixed voice. So they will typically bridge early, meaning that they will not pull up or stretch the chest range or the register of your true voice. They won't stretch that past the first break typically. And that goes for really like the traditional speech level singing technique. I know things have evolved in recent times, but they used to always bridge very early into middle voice and then into head voice. And again, some people call mixed voice middle voice. I always refer to it as middle voice, where it would sound, and boy, the SLS teachers hate this. Middle voice to me sounds like what others call chesty mix. It's like both registrations coexisting, and it sounds like chest voice, or what someone else would call, a chest belt or a chest mix belt, right? It's so confusing. And then mixed voice, in my understanding, would sound more like what someone would call a head voice belt, right? So it means something different to everyone. You can show someone head voice, and someone can look right back at you and go, oh, well, that's falsetto. And then the next guy or the next teacher will say, well, no. Falsetto is all breathy and completely open. Okay. But falsetto with chord closure and resonance will lead you right into head voice. Okay. I could go on and on and on and on with this, right? Okay. So long story short, teacher to teacher, they're not trying to fool you. Hopefully, they're not trying to. Some of them might seem like they're trying to impress you with the science of the voice. You know, when they start talking about harmonics and frequencies and frictives and all kinds of scientific terminology. But for certain learners, the stuff means something. It means something special to the intellectual learners. So we all learn in different ways. Some of us are more visual learners, so some people can just watch you do something and pick it up just by watching and kind of, focusing on that. And you have auditory learners that listen and basically parrot what you're doing. Like I would give a vocal example. Someone who's a really, really good auditory learner will copy that and sometimes just do it right immediately without tons of scientific explanation and instruction. And then you have the intellectual learners that like the charts and pie graphs and 50-cent words. Okay, so make sure that when you're finding your vocal coach, your teacher, that they do explain what they mean when they're giving you their vocal terminology, when they're trying to teach you, okay? Make sure you understand it. Make sure you have good communication, and you'll be just fine, okay? So that just about does it for this episode of the Visual Vocalist Podcast. I thank you for stopping by and joining me in the madness today. And if you're on YouTube, I hope and pray that you find the right vocal coach for you, the one that you can understand the best and understand the instruction the best and learn the best from, and the coach and the system that is going to greatly decrease your learning curve and get you where you want to be as fast as possible. Best of luck with your singing. If you need any help, head on over to hybridvocaltechnique.com. I'd love to be your vocal coach. I'd love for you to check out my system of vocal training, okay, which is a mixture of a lot of different systems. There are a lot of different terminology, but I explain everything in detail, what I'm talking about, okay? So I have vocal training programs. I do private one-on-one coaching online. You can also become a VIP member and get streaming access to the entire HVT training library, which is all of my vocal training programs, including the flagship Master Series program, version 3.0. We have a VIP community, monthly Q&A live streams, which have giveaways. I always give away a free lesson, a free private lesson in every live stream. We have legacy content from my teacher. And if you're a VIP member of any level, you have access to discounted private lessons, okay? So the choice is yours. Please make it today and let's sing. I'll see you next time. Take care.